Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. Michael Langston looked at the puzzled expression on the security monitor. Emily Harper, the housekeeper who had worked in his mansion for almost a year, was hurrying out through the back of the property. It wasn't the first time he had noticed this secretive behavior. Taking something in her bag again, he murmured to himself. Michael owned Langston Innovations, one of the most promising tech companies in Boston. At 38 years old, he had everything money could buy: a 3-story mansion in Beacon Hill, luxury cars and investments worth millions. But ever since his divorce 2 years ago, he lived alone in the large house, buried in work, surrounded by silence. Something about Emily's behavior sparked his curiosity. On impulse, Michael grabbed his coat and followed her. He kept his distance as the young woman walked quickly for 3 blocks, then turned down a quieter street. That's when he saw her stop in front of someone sitting on the ground by an abandoned building. A thin, exhausted-looking woman held a small girl in her arms. A boy around 5 stood beside her, staring sadly at the ground. Homeless. Michael stood behind a tree, watching the scene unfold. "Laura, I brought dinner for you," Emily said warmly as she pulled food containers from her bag. "There's chicken, potatoes, and some vegetables. It's still warm." "Emily, you're an angel," the homeless woman replied with a shaky voice. "I don't know how to thank you. Liam, look, I brought that chocolate pudding you like." Emily gently ruffled the boy's hair and he finally smiled. Michael felt something stir in his chest. His housekeeper had been taking food from his kitchen to feed the homeless. He should have been angry, but he couldn't take his eyes off the scene. Emily helped the woman feed the little girl while chatting kindly with the boy about his day. "Is Sophie running a fever again?" Emily asked, touching the girl's forehead. "It started last night. I'm giving her the medicine you brought, but I'll bring more tomorrow," Emily promised, pulling a small blanket from her bag. "It's getting cold at night." Michael watched fascinated as Emily sat on the dirty ground to talk with the family without any sign of disgust or hesitation. She laughed with the boy, told stories, and listened to Laura's worries. For 20 minutes, she turned that dark corner into something that felt almost like a home. When Emily finally left, Michael rushed back to the mansion. Before she returned, he slipped in through a side door and went straight to his office, his mind racing. Minutes later, he heard the service door quietly open and close. "Mr. Langston," Emily knocked on the office door. "Is there anything else you need before I go?" Michael looked up and truly saw her for the first time in a year. Emily Harper had intense green eyes, brown hair, tied back in a simple ponytail, and work-worn hands. She dressed modestly, nothing flashy, and carried herself with a quiet dignity that now deeply intrigued him. "Emily, how long have you worked for me?" he asked. 11 months, sir." She replied, clearly surprised by his sudden interest. "And what do you do after work?" He noticed the way her eyes shifted and her shoulders tensed. "Nothing special, sir. I go home sometimes, clean a few more houses. And you never take anything from this house without permission, right?" Her face went pale. "Mr. Langston, I would never. We need to talk tomorrow, Emily. Come in an hour earlier." A shiver ran through her, but she nodded. "Yes, sir." After she left, Michael sat motionless in his chair, replaying the scene he had witnessed. In his world of calculating executives and shallow relationships, real compassion was rare. While the phone rang insistently beside him, he ignored it, lost in the image of his housekeeper sitting on the dirty ground, sharing not just food but humanity. Emily entered her small one-bedroom apartment in Dorchester, a working-class neighborhood miles away from Beacon Hill's luxury. The place was modest but spotless, a reflection of someone who spent her days cleaning other people's messes. "He knows," she whispered, dropping her bag onto the worn couch. "He knows about the food." A wave of panic washed over her. Losing the job at the Langston mansion would mean not being able to pay rent, and it would also mean she could no longer help Laura and her children. Emily opened the nearly empty fridge and stared at her dinner, half a sandwich and an apple. She always set aside part of her own food to go with what she brought back from the mansion. She never took anything valuable, or any money, just leftovers that would usually be thrown away. Did that make her a thief in the eyes of her millionaire boss? Meanwhile, just a few miles away, Michael Langston sat alone at his extravagant dining table. The chef had prepared a perfect salmon with organic vegetables, but he just poked at the food, lost in thought. "Anything else, mister?" Langston asked Clara, the housekeeper. "Clara, what do you know about Emily, the cleaning lady?" The housekeeper looked surprised by the question. "Emily. She's a good woman. Works hard, always on time. We've never had any problems. Does she have any family?" "Not that I know of, sir. She doesn't talk much about her personal life." "Why do you ask?" "No special reason," Michael replied vaguely. "You can go now. Thank you." After she left, Michael picked up his laptop. With a few clicks, he opened the employee records and pulled up Emily Harper's file. There was very little there beyond the basics. 28 years old, single high school graduate, references from 2 previous cleaning jobs, no family listed as emergency contacts. His phone rang. It was Olivia Langston, his cousin, and the company's CFO. "Michael, did you see the messages I sent the Silicon Valley? Investors want answers by tomorrow." Her voice sounded annoyed. "I'm looking at it now," he lied, still reading Emily's file. "No, you're not. I know that tone. What's distracting you this time?" "Another charity idea to ease your guilt for being rich." Michael frowned. Olivia had always been blunt, sometimes almost harsh. As his only close relative, she had taken on the role of family business guardian after Michael's parents died, even though she was younger fairer than him. "Let's talk tomorrow at the office," he said, trying to avoid the subject. "You missed the meeting with the Apex Innovations executives today again. I'll send a formal apology." After hanging up, Michael went back to Emily's file. There was something about her that intrigued him. It wasn't just the kind act he had witnessed, but the dignity with which she did it. In his world of calculated relationships, strategic deals, and a failed marriage, finding someone who gave without expecting anything in return felt almost like an anomaly. The next morning, Emily arrived an hour early. As requested, she was visibly nervous, gripping the strap of her worn purse as she waited in Michael's office. He walked in holding 2 cups of coffee. He offered one to her. "Mr. Langston, about yesterday, I followed you, Emily." The color drained from her face. Michael went on. "I saw you giving food to that homeless woman and the children." Emily stood straighter, ready for whatever would come. "If you're going to fire me, I understand, but please let me explain. The food I take are leftovers that would be thrown away. I've never taken anything valuable, I swear. Laura and her kids are—" "How long have you been doing this?" Michael interrupted, his voice calm. 6 months. I met Laura just after she lost her apartment. Sophie had just been born." Michael took a sip of coffee, studying Emily over the rim of his cup. "You've been sharing your own dinner with them too, haven't you?" Emily's eyes widened. "How did you—" "I saw your face when the boy smiled at the pudding. That wasn't just kindness, Emily. That was sacrifice." She looked down. "It's not a big deal. I've been through hard times too." Michael set the cup down and walked to the window, looking out at the city of Boston waking up. "Do you know how much money I donated to charity last year, Emily?" "No, sir. $3 million. He turned to face her. "But not once did I sit on the floor with someone who needed help. Not once did I look in the eyes of someone receiving that money." Emily stayed quiet, unsure where the conversation was going. "What do Laura and the kids need besides food?" he asked suddenly. "A place to live, a job for Laura, school, for Liam, medical care for Sophie. She has asthma." Michael nodded slowly, an idea forming in his mind. "Emily, I'm not going to fire you. In fact, I want to make you an offer." "An offer," Emily repeated, uncertain. Michael motioned for her to sit down. There was something different in his eyes, a kind of intensity Emily hadn't seen before. "I want you to keep helping Laura and her kids, but on a bigger scale," he explained, "not just with leftovers and basic medicine." "I don't understand." "I'm offering to fund a real social project. A place where Laura and others in the same situation can get real help, and I want you to run it." Emily stared at him, speechless. "Is this a joke? I never joke about money," he replied seriously. "I'm asking you to stop being my cleaning lady and become the director of a new social project funded by the Langston Foundation." "But why? And why me? I don't have the background for something like that." Michael leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Background? You kept a family going for 6 months with leftover food and your own resourcefulness. That's more qualification than most NGO directors I know." Emily shook her head, not believing what she was hearing. "Mr. Langston, this makes no sense. You barely know my name. And now you want to give me a job running an entire project. Why? What do you get out of this?" The question hung in the air. Michael hesitated, then stood up and walked over to a picture frame turned face down on his desk. He flipped it over, revealing a photo of him with an older couple. "My parents, they built Langston Innovations from the ground up. When they passed away 5 years ago, they left me not just the company but also a legacy of social responsibility that I never really fulfilled." He paused. "My ex-wife used to say I helped people from a distance so I wouldn't have to get emotionally involved." Emily watched him closely. Michael took a deep breath before going on. 3 weeks ago I was diagnosed. Brain tumor." Emily gasped, but Michael raised a hand to stop her. "The doctors say I have between 6 months and a year, maybe less." "Mr. Langston, I'm so sorry. I don't want your sympathy," he cut in firmly. "I want your help. Seeing you yesterday sitting on that dirty floor, really connecting with those people, it made me realize I've spent my whole life keeping the real world at arm's length." He paused. "Before I go, I want to do something that truly matters." Emily stayed silent, taking it all in. A question came to her mind. "And what if I say no?" Then I'll find someone else. But I doubt I'll find anyone with your natural instinct for this. Emily stood and paced the room, trying to sort her thoughts. Finally, she turned to Michael. What exactly would my job be? First, finding a suitable place for the community center. Then putting together a team developing programs. He waved his hand slightly. You understand these people's real needs better than I do. And Laura, will start with her and the kids. A place to live, medical care for the girl. School for the boy. Emily crossed her arms. Why do I feel like there's more to this than you're telling me? Michael gave a faint smile. Sharp. Yes, there's something else. He went back to the desk and picked up a folder. My cousin Olivia is brilliant when it comes to business, but she has a very traditional view of charity. She believes in one-time donations, not structural change. If she finds out about this project, she'll do everything she can to stop it. So I'll be your secret rebel. Something like that. Officially, you'll be hired as my personal assistant. In reality, you'll have full freedom to develop the project with direct access to a specific account. Emily shook her head. This is crazy. I have no experience managing anything, let alone a large-scale social project. You've got something more important, genuine empathy. The rest can be learned. He held out his hand. So do we have a deal? Emily looked at his outstretched hand, knowing her answer could change not only her own life but Laura's and many others. On one condition, she said finally, I have to stay true to myself. No pretending, no office politics. Michael nodded. That's exactly why I chose you. When they shook hands, neither of them had any idea of the storms ahead or how that simple gesture would shape their futures in ways neither could imagine. You hired your cleaning lady as a personal assistant. Olivia Langston made no effort to hide her shock. Dressed elegantly, in a navy blue suit, she stared at her cousin across the meeting room table. Have you completely lost your mind, Michael? Emily has qualities that will be useful for some projects I have in mind, he replied, calmly sorting through documents. What qualities? Knowing which cleaner works best on marble, Olivia gave a dry laugh. What's your real interest in this woman? Michael looked up from the papers. You always assume the worst in people, Olivia, and you've always been far too naive. She leaned forward. Is this because of the doctor's news? Are you having some kind of early midlife crisis? The mention of the supposed diagnosis made Michael pause. The lie about the tumor had come out spontaneously, a way to explain his sudden interest in the social project. He hadn't expected the story to reach Olivia so quickly. My health is not up for discussion, he deflected. Emily will start today as my assistant, and that's final. Olivia studied him for a moment, then smiled. That calculated smile, Michael knew all too well. Of course, cousin. Your company, your decisions. She stood up gracefully. I can't wait to get to know this very special assistant better. Across town, Emily was facing her own moment of truth. A job. A real job. Laura was holding Sophie in her arms while Liam played with an old toy car a few feet away in the small park, where they had agreed to meet, yes, with a steady paycheck and everything. Emily confirmed. And there's more. I found an apartment for the three of you. This can't be real. Laura's eyes filled with tears. Who would do something like that for us? Emily hesitated. Michael had asked her to keep his direct involvement quiet, at least for now. It's a new community project, she said vaguely. I'm helping to develop it. Overnight you became a social worker. Laura looked suspicious. Emily, you're not doing anything dangerous, are you? Of course not. Emily sat down next to her friend. It was an unexpected, but legitimate opportunity. Trust me. Laura looked at her for a long time. Liam asks about you every day. When is Aunt Emily coming back? You're the only person besides me he trusts since we ended up on the streets. Emily felt her chest tighten. You won't be on the streets anymore. The apartment is in Roxbury. It's small, but it's clean and safe. It has 2 bedrooms and it's close to a good public school for Liam. And what do I have to do in return? Laura asked softly. Join the program. Look for a job. Keep the kids in school and take them to their doctor appointments. Emily held her friend's hand. Give yourselves a real chance. That afternoon, Emily arrived at Langston Innovations, wearing newly bought clothes, simple slacks, and a white blouse. She felt out of place among the executives in expensive suits and women in high heels. The front desk receptionist looked her up and down. Can I help you? I'm Emily Harper. Mr. Langston is expecting me. The woman raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. Oh, the new personal assistant. There was something in her tone that made Emily's face burn. Before she could answer, a polished female voice came from behind her. You must be Emily. I'm Olivia Langston. Emily turned to see a woman around 35 years old, impeccably dressed with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Nice to meet you, Miss Langston. Miss Langston, Olivia corrected her. Michael is on a video call. I thought we could take a moment to chat. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. Emily followed Olivia into a smaller meeting room, feeling like an animal being led into a trap. So Olivia began as soon as she closed the door. How does a cleaning lady become the CEO's personal assistant overnight? Must have been a very impressive interview. Emily kept her composure. Mr. Langston saw potential in my work. I'm sure he did. Olivia gave a cold smile. My cousin has always had a soft heart, especially for charity cases. I'm not a charity case, Emily replied more firmly than she meant to. You're not. Olivia tilted her head. Well, whatever it is you're planning, just know that this company and my cousin's fortune are under my protection. Michael might be distracted for now with personal matters, but I'm always watching. The door opened and Michael walked in. Olivia, I see you've met Emily. Olivia's expression changed instantly. Yes, we were having a lovely chat. Welcome to the team, Emily. Once she left, Michael closed the door. Is she always like that? Emily asked. Actually, that was her being polite, Michael said with a half smile. How did it go with Laura? Suspicious, as expected. But she accepted the help. Michael nodded, pleased. Good. Now, about the community center, I found 3 properties we could convert. I'd like you to visit them this week. Mr. Langston, Michael, please. If we're going to work on this project together, we need to drop the formalities. Michael, she corrected herself, feeling strange, saying his name. Everyone around here seems to think I'm your, well, lover. He finished without hesitation. Let them think that. It'll be a good cover for the project. That doesn't bother you, should it? Emily studied the man in front of her. She had never seen her boss in this light, not as a distant millionaire, but as a man with a purpose and apparently not much time to see it through. I have a question, she finally said. If you only have a few months left like you said, why start something you won't live to finish? Michael met her eyes, and for a moment Emily saw a vulnerability in him that he rarely showed. Maybe because for the first time in a long while I found something that feels like it actually matters, he said simply. Now let's get to work. 2 weeks later, Emily walked through an old warehouse in the Dorchester neighborhood. The wide space with dust-covered windows had been empty for years, but she could already see the potential. This is perfect, she said, her voice echoing in the empty space. We could have temporary housing upstairs, a community kitchen over there, and job training space in that corner. Michael watched Emily with growing admiration. She had thrown herself into the project with a passion and skill that surprised him. In just 2 weeks, she had researched models of community centers, visited local nonprofits, and put together a basic plan that would impress any social services expert. How did you learn all this so fast? He asked. Emily shrugged. Mostly the internet and talking to people who really need help. Sometimes the best research is just listening. I agree, said a woman's voice behind them. Olivia was standing at the entrance, elegant as always, in her expensive dress, looking completely out of place in the dusty space. Michael frowned. How did you find us? Olivia smiled. I handle the company's finances, remember? Any significant purchase crosses my desk, including the acquisition of this charming location. Emily and Michael exchanged uneasy glances. Olivia, I was going to tell you, Michael began. About your little charity project, she interrupted, walking through the space and running her fingers along a wall with clear disapproval. A center for the homeless, from what I gathered in the paperwork. Noble. Expensive, but noble. The money is coming from my personal account, Michael said. And the name of the foundation on the documents? Olivia asked. Langston. The same name our company carries. The same name our investors associate with cutting-edge technology. Not soup for the homeless. Please don't talk like that, Emily cut in, unable to hold back. Olivia turned slowly to face her eyebrows raised in theatrical surprise. Excuse me. The cleaning lady has opinions on corporate strategy now. Michael stepped forward. Emily is managing this project under my direct supervision, Olivia. Is she fascinating? Olivia walked up to Emily. Then tell me, Emily, what experience do you have in running social projects? What's your academic background before dusting off my cousin's mansion? Where exactly did you work? Emily met Olivia's stare without flinching. Real experience doesn't always come with a degree, diplomatic Olivia said with a humorless laugh. Michael always had a soft spot for lost causes. First, the failed marriage, and now... She waved vaguely at the space around them. Michael looked like he was about to explode, but surprisingly, it was Emily who stepped forward. Miss Langston, I understand your concern about the company's reputation. That's why we're planning to launch this as a separate initiative with its own branding. The investors don't even need to know unless we want to use it later for social marketing. Olivia and Michael looked at Emily, equally surprised. She went on. As for my experience, I'm learning fast, and I have something a lot of trained managers don't: direct contact with the people we're trying to help. I know exactly what they need because I live among them." Olivia studied Emily for a moment, then gave a smile that held no warmth at all. "Impressive. A cleaning lady with a talent for public relations." She turned to Michael. "Keep your little charity toy, cousin. If it helps you cope during this difficult moment, who am I to judge? Just keep the numbers separate and I'll live with it." After Olivia left, a heavy silence hung between them. "She's going to look into you," Michael finally said. "Olivia never lets things go." Emily felt a chill run through her. What could she find? "That depends. Do you have something to hide?" That night, alone in her apartment, Emily opened a box hidden in the back of her closet. Inside were yellowed newspaper clippings and carefully preserved photographs. With trembling fingers, she picked up a newspaper article with the headline, "$1 Million Fraud Shakes, Chicago Financial Market." The photo showed a man in a suit being led away by police, and just behind him, slightly out of focus, was a younger Emily dressed in elegant clothes she could barely remember wearing. "Thomas," she whispered to the image of the man, "you ruined everything." Emily used to be Emily Sullivan, wife of Thomas Sullivan, one of Chicago's most promising financial consultants. They lived a life of luxury, charity, galas, international travel, everything until the day it all fell apart. Thomas had set up a fraudulent scheme that deceived investors and friends alike. When the truth came out, he took his own life, leaving Emily to face the aftermath alone: massive debts, lawsuits, and social stigma. She tried to rebuild her life, changed her name, and started fresh in Boston. For years, she worked hard to pay off what debts she could, living as simply as possible. The trauma had changed her deeply, and now, in a strange twist of fate, she found herself working for another wealthy businessman. Her phone rang, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was Michael. "Emily, I need you to come to the estate tomorrow morning. I've got an idea to speed things up with the project." "Did something happen?" she asked, concerned by the urgency in his voice. "Nothing serious. I just want to make the most of the time I have." His vague reference to the supposed illness made Emily press her lips together. Even if it was for a good cause, lying about something so serious still bothered her. "I'll be there at 8. After hanging up, Emily carefully stored away the newspaper clippings. If Olivia ever found out about her past, it would ruin everything. Not just her job, but more importantly, the help that was finally starting to reach Laura and so many others who needed it. Rain was pounding against the windows of the Langston mansion when Emily arrived the next morning. Michael welcomed her into the study, which was filled with architectural blueprints and documents. "I want to speed up the warehouse renovation," he said without delay. "I hired a construction company that can finish the job in 1 month instead of 3. Emily's eyes widened. "Is that even possible?" "With enough money, almost anything is," Michael said. He seemed different, more energized, almost manic. "I also approved the purchase of the furniture and equipment you suggested. Michael, we don't have to rush. We should take our time, plan the programs properly." He slammed his hand on the table. "We don't have that luxury." Then more gently, "I don't have that luxury." Emily felt that stab of guilt again. The lie about the tumor was weighing on her more each day. "Sorry." Michael ran a hand through his hair. "I'm under pressure. Olivia's questioning every expense, and the shareholders are getting nervous about my divided focus. Maybe we should tell your cousin the truth about the center." "No." His answer was firm. "Olivia only sees success in financial terms. To her, helping people is just an expensive hobby, not a real need." A thunderclap rattled the windows, followed by a sudden blackout. The mansion was plunged into darkness. "Great," Michael muttered. "The generator should kick in any second." But it didn't. Only the occasional flash of lightning lit the room. "Looks like the backup system failed," Michael said, turning on his phone's flashlight. "I'll go check the control panel in the basement. You should stay here." "I'm going with you," Emily said. 2 sets of eyes are better than 1. The mansion's basement was surprisingly large. A maze of hallways, storage rooms, and old machinery. Using their phones for light, they made their way down the service stairs. "Never thought I'd see the great Michael Langston doing manual labor," Emily commented as he opened an electrical panel. "I grew up helping my dad fix things," he replied, surprising her. "Before the money and the tech, we were just a middle-class family with a garage full of projects. Hard to picture that. That's because you only know this version of me, the distant executive who barely noticed the cleaning lady." Emily felt her face flush. "Well, you're definitely making up for that now." A deafening crash shook the structure, followed by the sound of something breaking. Instinctively, Michael pulled Emily close, shielding her. "Lightning," he said, still holding her. "Must have hit a nearby tree." They were suddenly very close, their faces lit only by the bluish glow of their phones. Emily's heart was racing from the shock, she told herself. "I think we can let go now," she whispered. "Right." Michael released her quickly and focused back on the panel. Found the problem: a blown fuse. As he worked to replace it, Emily watched his hands strong, capable nothing like what she'd imagined from a millionaire executive. There was so much more to this man than she had first thought. "So what was your life like before?" she asked. "When you were just a regular middle-class kid," Michael smiled, focused on the task. "Pretty normal. Public school work during summer breaks. Used to argue with my cousin over who got to use the car on weekends. Hard to believe you and Olivia were close." "We were inseparable," he said. "Olivia was brilliant, always helped me with my homework. When my parents died, she was the one who kept me from falling apart." "What happened between the two of you, I mean?" Michael paused, thinking. Success, money? Different views on what to do with it all. He shrugged. "What about you? Have you always been this devoted to helping people?" Emily looked away. "Not always. There was a time when I was very focused on myself." "What changed?" A painful memory crossed her face. "I learned the hard way that building a life on appearances and money is like building a sandcastle during high tide." Before Michael could ask more, the lights suddenly came back on. The intimate moment was broken by the return of electricity. "Mission accomplished," he said, closing the panel. As they climbed the stairs, a heavy silence followed them, the kind that comes when two people begin to see past first impressions. Back in the office, they picked up the conversation about the community center, but something had shifted. The professional distance had cracked just enough to let in glimpses of vulnerability on both sides. "I think we should visit Laura and the kids," Michael said as they reviewed the kitchen equipment list. "I want to see how they're settling into the apartment." Emily looked up surprised. "You want to go in person? Why the surprise? It's my project too. It's just, you always seem to prefer helping from a distance without getting too involved." Michael put down his pen and leaned back in his chair. "Maybe I'm trying to change that. Realizing your time is limited tends to shift your priorities." Once again, the lie about his health hung between them. Emily felt a knot in her stomach. "Michael, about your condition, I don't want to talk about it," he interrupted firmly. "Each day has enough troubles of its own right. Right. Today we're planning something that will help hundreds of people. That's what I want to focus on." Emily nodded, swallowing the words that wanted to come out. How could she tell him she knew exactly what it was like to lose everything? That she understood maybe better than he realized the deep desire to leave something good behind before it was too late. The next day they visited Laura at the small apartment in Roxbury. Liam ran to Emily the moment they walked in, wrapping his arms tightly around her legs. "Aunt Emily, I have a real room now with a bed just for me. That's wonderful, isn't it?" Emily smiled, ruffling the boy's hair. "Liam, this is Mr. Langston. He's helping with the project." The boy looked up at Michael with curious eyes. "Are you rich, Mr. Langston?" Laura said, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Langston. Kids have no filter." Michael laughed, a genuine sound Emily rarely heard. "It's okay. Yes, Liam, I have some money, but you know what I've learned? Money's not much fun unless you do something good with it." As Laura showed them the apartment, Emily watched Michael interact with Sophie, who had recovered from her fever. To her surprise, he seemed completely at ease with the 2-year-old, letting her play with his expensive tie and patiently answering her endless toddler questions. "You're good with kids," Emily said as they headed back to the car. "I had a younger sister," he replied, a shadow passing over his face. "She died when we were teenagers. Leukemia." "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "You won't find it in any business magazine," he said with a sad smile. "It doesn't fit the image of the ruthless CEO of Langston Innovations." In the car, Michael grew quiet. "Laura's smart. With the right training, she could work in admin or support. She used to be a legal assistant before everything fell apart," Emily said. "A tough divorce, medical issues with no insurance, and suddenly she was on the street." "How did you meet her?" Emily hesitated. "It was by chance. I recognized the look people have when they've lost everything and still can't believe it happened." Michael studied her for a long moment, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Sometimes I get the feeling you understand way more than you let on, Emily." She turned to the window, watching the streets go by. "We all have our secrets." The event hall at the Renaissance Hotel sparkled with golden lights and elegant floral arrangements. Boston's elite mingled with champagne flutes, evening gowns, and polite conversation. It was the fundraising dinner for the new Horizon Community Center, a name carefully chosen to leave out the Langston surname, just as Michael had promised Olivia. Emily watched the scene with a mix of fascination and discomfort. Wearing a simple black dress borrowed from Clara, the housekeeper, she felt like an outsider among so many wealthy and influential people. "Relax," Michael said as he came over and handed her a glass of water. "You're doing wonderfully. Half these people think I'm your mistress. The other half think I'm some kind of personal charity project," she muttered. "And what does it matter what they think? We're here to get donations, not win a popularity contest." Michael looked especially sharp that night in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. No one would ever guess he was carrying the weight of a terminal diagnosis because it wasn't real. Emily reminded herself with a stab of guilt. The past few weeks had been intense. The community center was taking shape quickly. Laura was already working part-time at the front desk. Liam was enrolled in the local school and Sophie was attending a subsidized daycare. 5 other families had joined the pilot program. The early results were promising enough to justify tonight's gala. Michael, what a lovely surprise. A sophisticated woman approached, kissing the air near his cheek. I haven't seen you at a social event in months. Caroline, this is Emily Harper, Executive Director of the Horizon Center. The woman looked Emily up and down. Fascinating. I've always admired your knack for discovering hidden gems, Michael. As Caroline walked away, Emily sighed. This is going to be a long night. Just keep your focus, Michael said, gently touching her elbow. All of this is about making sure the center keeps going when I'm not here anymore. The memory of the lie weighed on her again. Emily was about to say something when Olivia appeared stunning in a red dress. Cousin Olivia said with a smile, I have to admit I'm impressed. This event is far more elegant than I expected. Emily planned the whole thing, Michael replied. Olivia turned to Emily with a sharp smile. Hidden talents everywhere, it seems. First a housekeeper, then a personal assistant, now an event planner. I just did my job, Emily replied politely. Of course. Olivia took a sip of her champagne. Michael, the Andersons want to discuss that investment. Do you mind? As Michael walked off with Olivia, Emily took the opportunity to look around the room. Bankers, business people, local politicians, all there to attach their names to a noble cause without necessarily understanding the reality of the people they claimed to help. Miss Harper, a waiter approached. There's a phone call for you. They said it's urgent. Out in the hotel lobby, Emily answered the phone, worried. It was Laura, sounding panicked. Emily, someone's here asking questions about you. A very well-dressed woman. She says she works for a background check agency. Emily felt her blood run cold. What exactly did she ask? How we met? How long I've known you? And then she started showing pictures, old pictures of you, Emily, from Chicago. Laura, don't talk to anyone else. I'm coming right now. As she hung up and turned around, she found Olivia standing behind her, a triumphant smile on her face. Trouble in paradise, Emily. Or should I say Emily Sullivan. The world seemed to stop. You sent someone to Laura. Basic due diligence, Olivia said with a shrug. Did you really think I'd let a total stranger manipulate my cousin and threaten our company without finding out who she is, especially someone with such an interesting past? It's not what you think. No, Olivia raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. Wife of one of Chicago's biggest financial criminals, living under a false name planted inside the home of one of Boston's wealthiest men. It sounds exactly like what I think. I had nothing to do with Thomas's crimes. Easy to say now. Olivia glanced at her diamond watch. In exactly 10 minutes I'll be on that stage thanking everyone for coming. After that I'll be making an important announcement about certain irregularities found in the project. Panic surged in Emily's chest. Olivia, please. This project is helping real people. Don't destroy it out of revenge. Revenge. Olivia let out a laugh. This is business, dear. I'm protecting the Langston family's interests, just like I always have. She stepped closer and whispered, Michael has been emotionally vulnerable since the diagnosis. You saw an opening and took it. Classic setup. There is no diagnosis, Emily said quietly. Michael made up the tumor. Olivia blinked, momentarily thrown off. What, he lied about being sick to justify the project? He's not dying. For a moment, Olivia looked genuinely shocked. Then her face hardened. Even worse, you both lied to manipulate everyone. She adjusted her evening bag. 10 minutes, Emily. I suggest you use that time to say goodbye to your little project. As Olivia walked away, Emily rushed back into the ballroom, desperately scanning the room for Michael. She found him speaking with a group of potential donors. Michael, we need to talk now. He picked up on her urgency right away. Excusing himself from the group, he followed Emily to a quiet corner. Olivia knows everything, Emily said quickly. About my past in Chicago. About your fake diagnosis, all of it. She's going to expose everything in 10 minutes. Michael went pale. How she looked into my past. Sent someone to talk to Laura. Michael, she's going to tear it all down. For a moment he looked stunned. Then surprisingly, a cold calm settled over his face. Why didn't you ever tell me about Chicago? About Thomas? Emily didn't expect that. What does that really matter right now? Yes, it does. You were married to Thomas Sullivan, the man who ran a multi-million-dollar investment scam. I didn't know what he was doing. You didn't? Michael stepped back. You lived with him, Emily. Enjoyed the money, the parties, the trips. Is it really possible you never suspected a thing? His words hit her like slaps. You're believing her after everything we've built together. We built it on lies, he said bitterly. You hid your past. I pretended to be sick. To help people. Everything we did was to help real people. Michael ran a hand over his face, looking suddenly worn out. Maybe Olivia is right. Maybe I let myself get caught up in the perfect story. The kind-hearted cleaner, secretly feeding the poor. No. Emily felt tears sting her eyes. Don't do this. Don't let her ruin something good over corporate politics. The MC announced the thank you speeches would begin in 5 minutes. I'll talk to her, Michael said. Maybe I can strike a deal. What kind of deal? Our names are on the line. No, Michael. My name is on the line. My family's name. My company's. Her words came out before she could stop them. And what about the people we're helping? Laura, Liam, Sophie. Don't they matter? Michael hesitated, the inner struggle showing clearly in his eyes. Of course they matter, but I have to think about the bigger picture. The bigger picture. You were a different man in the basement during that blackout. A man who cared about what really matters. Before he could respond, Olivia stepped up to the stage, glowing in her red dress. The microphone squealed slightly as she adjusted it. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Langston family, I want to thank you for attending this charity event. Emily looked at Michael one last time, seeing only hesitation on his face. With her heart breaking, she turned and walked toward the exit. Before we move on to the thank yous, Olivia continued, I have an important announcement about the Horizon Community Center and who's really running it. Emily didn't stay to hear the rest. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she left the elegant hall and stepped into the cold Boston night, feeling like she was once again losing everything she had built. 3 days had passed since the disaster at the fundraiser. Emily couldn't even turn on the television, afraid to see her face on the local news, her past exposed for all to see. Her phone was full of missed calls, Laura Clara, the housekeeper, even some unknown numbers, but still nothing from Michael. Her small apartment had never felt so suffocating. She was slowly packing her few belongings, preparing for yet another escape, another fresh start. Chicago, now Boston. What city would be next? A firm knock at the door startled her. Emily froze, heart racing. Was it the police reporters, old creditors finally catching up with her? Emily, it's me, Laura. Please open up. With a sigh of relief, Emily unlocked the door. Laura came in quickly, holding Sophie in her arms. Liam clung tightly to her hand. Thank God you're okay, Laura said, hugging her with one arm. I tried calling 1,000 times. I'm sorry. I just wasn't ready to talk to anyone. We need to talk, Laura said urgently. It's about that woman, Olivia. Emily felt her stomach drop. She's been with you again, not exactly. Laura sat Sophie down and pulled a crumpled envelope from her bag. She sent a private investigator who showed me this. It's newspaper clippings about you and your ex-husband. Emily took the envelope with trembling fingers. And what did you say to him, the truth? Laura sat down on the worn-out couch, pulling Liam close. That I was a legal assistant at the office that investigated Thomas Sullivan's case, that I saw you hand over evidence against him months before the scandal broke. Emily stared at her, friend stunned. You worked on the case, Laura nodded. When you found me on that street 6 months ago, I recognized you right away. Emily Sullivan, the wife who turned in her own husband and still got treated like she was guilty. Why didn't you say anything? You were clearly starting over using a different name. It wasn't my place to drag up a painful past. Laura gave a sad smile. Besides, I was in a humiliating place myself, a former legal assistant living on the streets. Emily sank into the nearest chair. All this time you knew, and I was even more grateful for your help, knowing you had lost everything too. Laura squeezed Liam's hand. But that's not what matters now. You need to know what happened after you left the event. Emily's heart raced. Olivia exposed me, didn't she? She ruined the project. She tried, Laura said, with a mysterious smile. She started talking about fraud and imposters, but before she could say your name, Mr. Langston took the microphone. Michael. He publicly admitted he lied about having a brain tumor, took full responsibility, saying he made up the illness to explain his sudden interest in charity because he didn't want to look weak to the shareholders. Emily covered her mouth. He confessed completely, and then to everyone's shock, especially his cousins, he announced he was donating $30 million of his personal fortune to permanently fund the Horizon Center. Laura shook her head, still amazed. The room exploded in applause. Olivia looked like she was about to faint. And what about me? He said the project director had to step away for personal reasons, but that your work had been essential. He didn't mention anything about your past. Emily could hardly believe it. Michael had protected her. Even after learning the truth, he had saved the project even at the cost of his own reputation. That's not all, Laura went on. Yesterday, the investigator came to my apartment again. He said Olivia Langston wanted to meet with me personally. And did you go with Liam and Sophie? Yes. I thought she wanted more dirt to use against you, but... Laura paused. She wanted to confirm my story about you turning in your husband, about you being innocent. And I showed her documents I kept from that time, statements, dates. I proved you tried to expose Thomas months before the scandal, but no one believed the gold-digging wife. Laura took a deep breath. Emily Olivia offered me a job in Langston Innovations' legal department. Emily blinked several times trying to take it in. She said she needed someone with verifiable integrity to oversee legal compliance on the project. I start Monday. Laura gave a nervous smile. Full salary benefits, corporate daycare for Sophie. The pieces started to come together in Emily's mind. Michael hadn't just taken the blame publicly. He was rebuilding the project with or without her. And the Horizon Center, she finally asked. It's moving forward. Renovations are underway, and new families are being interviewed. Laura hesitated. They're looking for a new director, Emily. Mr. Langston keeps asking about you. A lump rose in Emily's throat. He knows how to find me. He thinks you don't want to be found. That's what he told Olivia right in front of me. If Emily wants to come back, the door is open. If she'd rather start fresh somewhere else, I'll respect her choice. Liam, who had been quiet the whole time, tugged at Emily's sleeve. Aunt Emily, are you leaving? Please don't. Looking into the boy's worried face, Emily felt her defenses crumble. For years, she had run from her past, hiding behind a new name, a new city, an anonymous life. She had helped Laura and the kids quietly, always keeping her distance. But now, for the first time, she had a chance to face the truth and maybe still be accepted. What do you think I should do, Laura? Her friend smiled. I think you already know the answer. The next morning, Emily took a deep breath before walking into the Langston Innovations building. The front desk security guard, who used to ignore her when she was just a cleaning lady, now watched her with curiosity. I have a meeting with Mr. Langston, she said, surprised by the firmness in her own voice. In the elevator, she nervously adjusted the only blazer she owned, bought from a second-hand store for her job interview as a cleaner more than a year ago. The executive office was quiet when she arrived. The secretary looked up surprised. Miss Harper, we weren't expecting to see you again. Is Mr. Langston in? He went to check on the community center construction. He should be back in an hour. The secretary hesitated. Miss Harper, a lot of what's being said around here, not all of it is true, is it? Emily gave a slight smile. It rarely is. Instead of waiting at the office, Emily decided to follow her instinct. She took a cab to the community center address in Dorchester. The old warehouse was nearly unrecognizable, with scaffolding covering the front and workers moving all around. And there he was in the middle of the organized chaos, Michael Langston in jeans and rolled-up sleeves, reviewing blueprints with the site supervisor. For a few seconds, Emily just watched him from a distance. There was something different about him now. Something more real, less calculated than the polished CEO she had first met. Finally gathering her courage, she walked toward him. Michael turned as if sensing her presence and breathed when he saw her. Emily, her name came out like a sigh of relief. I heard you're looking for a director, she said simply. A slow smile spread across his face. Are you applying for the job? That depends. What happened to the last one? She had a complicated past, but she also had a kind of integrity I was slow to recognize. Emily looked at the building in transformation. I heard you took the blame for the lie about the tumor. It was my lie to take. Michael stepped closer. Why didn't you ever tell me about Chicago, about Thomas? For the same reason you made up an illness, sometimes we lie, because we're afraid the truth will make us unacceptable. A quiet moment of understanding passed between them. Laura told me everything, Michael continued. How you tried to report your husband, how no one believed you, how you lost everything, even though you were innocent. He shook his head. I should have asked before judging, and I should have trusted you with the truth. We built this project on lies, like I said that night. But what we've built itself isn't a lie. Michael motioned toward the building. This is real. What we're doing for Laura, for Liam and Sophie, for all these families, it's real. Emily felt tears starting to form. Does Olivia still hate me? Michael gave a slight smile. Olivia never hated you. She was afraid you were like Rachel, who my ex-wife, she married me for the money, and when we divorced, she took a fortune. Michael shrugged. Olivia's always been a little too protective. She hired Laura. Yes, to my surprise. Apparently my cousin has a soft spot for women who stand up to the system to do what's right. He held out his hand. So what do you say, Emily? Ready for a fresh start. No more lies this time. Emily looked at his outstretched hand, feeling the weight of the past few years. The fall, the fight, the lonely rebuilding. Then she looked at the community center where others would now have the chance to rebuild their own lives. No more lies. She agreed, taking his hand. But the handshake quickly turned into something more, a spontaneous hug full of relief and possibility. The following weeks flew by. The Horizon Community Center was coming together fast. Emily threw herself into the work with renewed energy this time, without the burden of her secret. Michael stayed involved too, surprising everyone with how personally committed he was to the project. "Mr. Langston, we've got an issue with the industrial kitchen," Emily said as she walked into his office one afternoon carrying blueprints and budget notes. "The health code requires Michael," he corrected, without looking up from his paperwork. "How many times do I have to remind you?" "It's hard to break the habit after calling you Mr. for a whole year." He finally looked up at her, a playful smile on his lips. "You look different." "I went to the salon," Emily said unconsciously, touching her freshly cut hair. For the first time in years, she had allowed herself a small luxury. "Laura talked me into it. It suits you, less hidden." The casual comment struck a chord. That was exactly how Emily had been feeling in recent weeks, less hidden. Her real name had quietly been restored on official documents, lifting the constant fear of being found out. Speaking of Laura, she continued quickly. "She's adjusting really well in the legal department. Olivia seems impressed." "Olivia is more impressed with you," Michael revealed. "She'll never admit it out loud, but she respects your resilience." Emily smiled, a little surprised. Her relationship with Olivia had gone from open hostility to a sort of cautious respect. The truth about her past had ironically created an unexpected connection. They both understood the cost of protecting what they valued. So the kitchen, Emily got back on track, spreading the plans out on the table. "We need to make a change to the original layout." As they went over technical details, Emily couldn't help but notice how their dynamic had changed. They were no longer boss and employee, or even benefactor and beneficiary. They were working as equals, each bringing their strengths to the table. That evening, almost everyone had already left when Emily finally shut down her computer. To her surprise, Michael appeared at the door of her new office. "Still here. It's almost 9. "I could say the same to you," she said with a yawn. "Some things never change. You're still the last one out." "Actually, I was waiting for you." He looked strangely nervous. "I thought we could have dinner to go over the project, of course." Emily studied his face for a moment. Of course, the project. The restaurant Michael picked was elegant but not flashy, a place where they didn't feel out of place in their work clothes. During dinner, they talked about the community center, the new families chosen for the program, the vocational courses starting next month. But eventually, as expected, the conversation turned more personal. "You never told me exactly what happened," Michael said gently. "In Chicago," Emily played with her napkin, gathering her thoughts. "The short version, I married young to a charismatic man who seemed to have the world at his feet. Thomas was brilliant with money, or so everyone thought, including you. For a while, yes. He gave me everything I thought I wanted: status, comfort, security." Emily took a sip of water. "But then, I started noticing things that didn't add up. Numbers that didn't match investors who seemed too nervous. I confronted Thomas and he swore it was just aggressive strategy, nothing illegal. But you didn't believe him. Something felt off. I started digging, collecting documents. When I realized how big the fraud was, I was horrified. People had trusted him with their life savings." Michael listened closely as she went on. "I took the evidence to a law firm that specialized in financial fraud. That's where Laura worked. But Thomas had powerful connections, and somehow he found out what I was doing. He managed to convince everyone I was trying to blackmail clients, maybe even frame him for something he hadn't done. And no one believed you. I was the ambitious wife who enjoyed the money. Why would I turn on the man who gave me that life? Unless I wanted more." Emily gave a bitter smile. "The irony is, I never cared about money as much as Thomas thought I did. I liked the security, yes, but what really made me happy was seeing him happy, living his dream." "What happened next?" "When the fraud finally came to light months later, Thomas couldn't take the pressure. He took his own life before he could be arrested." Emily took a deep breath. "Suddenly, I was the widow of a con man assumed to be his accomplice. I lost everything, not just money. I lost friends, respect, my identity. And you came to Boston to start over with a different name." "Yes, I was tired of being Emily Sullivan, the suspicious widow. I just wanted to be no one, I guess." Michael reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. "You were never no one, Emily, not even when you were quietly cleaning my house." His touch was warm and comforting. Emily didn't pull her hand away. "Your turn," she said. "Why did you make up having a tumor?" Michael leaned back in his chair, keeping his eyes on hers. "The truth, I was improvising. I needed something dramatic to explain why I suddenly cared about doing good, not even to myself." "Why did you need a reason?" "Because men like me don't do charity out of pure kindness. We do it for tax breaks, for marketing, to ease our guilt about being privileged. He shrugged. A terminal diagnosis explained everything. No one would question a man trying to make peace before he dies. That's cynical. It's realistic. Olivia would have shut down the project if I'd simply said I was moved by the kindness of my housekeeper feeding the homeless. Emily thought about his words. Still lying about something that serious. It was wrong. I know. Michael seemed genuinely sorry. I realized it when Olivia found out the truth. The lie stained something that was supposed to be purely good. And now, without the lie as an excuse, why are you still moving forward with the project? Michael looked her in the eyes. Because I met you, Emily. You showed me that helping others doesn't have to be a distant transaction. It can be personal, meaningful, even life-changing. Dinner went on late into the evening, their conversation flowing easily from professional topics to personal ones. When they finally left, a light rain had started to fall. My driver can take you home, Michael offered. That's not necessary. I can take the subway. At 11 at night, Emily smiled, picking up on the protective tone. I can take care of myself. You know I've survived worse than Boston's subway at night. I know you can. He looked at her with an intensity that made her heart beat faster. Let me come with you then. I can take the subway too. Michael Langston, on public transportation now that I have to see. Laughing, they walked together through the light rain to the nearest station. At that hour, the train car was nearly empty, giving them space to sit side by side, their shoulders brushing now and then as the train swayed. What's it like? He asked quietly. What, living normally? No drivers, no assistants, no doors magically opening in front of you. Emily laughed. Is that what you think normal is? Most people aren't struggling to survive, you know. They're just living, working, loving, making mistakes, trying again. Michael looked down at his hands. Sometimes I wonder if I still remember how to do that live normally. It's like riding a bike. You never really forget. When they reached the station near Emily's apartment, Michael insisted on walking her to the door. They walked in comfortable silence down the quiet streets, occasionally exchanging glances and smiles. Well, this is it, she said, stopping in front of the modest building. Michael began more hesitant than she'd ever seen him. Maybe I'm reading this wrong, but you're not, she interrupted gently. For a moment they just stood there, light rain falling on them, time hanging between who they had been and who they might become. Then Michael touched her face softly, leaning in for a kiss that was tender and almost shy. Emily closed her eyes, letting herself fully feel that moment, the first in a long time, where she wasn't running, hiding, or protecting herself. When they pulled back, both smiled, a little surprised, a little nervous, completely sincere. This complicates things, Emily murmured. Or maybe it makes things simpler, he replied, brushing a damp strand of hair from her face. Good night, Emily. Good night, Michael. As she watched him walk away, Emily felt a strange mix of fear and hope. She had learned the hard way that trusting powerful people was risky. But Michael wasn't Thomas, and she was no longer the naive young woman she once was. For the first time in years, Emily allowed herself to imagine a future that wasn't only shaped by her past, but by the possibilities of the present. The Horizon Community Center was almost ready for its grand opening. The freshly painted walls, new furniture, modern equipment, it was all coming together day by day. In the 3 months since the charity event, the project had grown beyond their initial expectations. 8 families were already living in subsidized apartments. 15 people had found stable jobs, and there was a waiting list for job training courses starting next week. The daycare turned out perfect, Emily said, walking through the colorful space filled with carefully arranged educational toys. Sophie's going to love it. Beside her, Michael smiled. In the past few weeks, they had found a comfortable rhythm working together during the day, having dinner some nights, getting to know each other at a slower, more thoughtful pace than either had ever experienced before. Speaking of kids, I got an interesting call today, Michael mentioned as they left the daycare. A local television station wants to do a story about the center. Apparently, Laura's journey from homeless to working at Langston Innovations caught their attention. Emily stopped abruptly. A story with cameras and everything. Yes. Why, it would be great publicity for the center. The panic was clear in Emily's eyes. Michael, if my face shows up on television, my past in Chicago. Michael gently touched her shoulder. Your name was legally restored. Remember, there's nothing left to hide. Besides, you were cleared of any involvement in Thomas's fraud. Legally, yes, but the court of public opinion never cleared me. Emily shook her head. There are people in Chicago who lost everything because of Thomas. If they recognize me, I understand. Michael nodded. I'll talk to the station. We can focus the piece on Laura and the other families. You don't need to appear. The relief on Emily's face was clear, but it quickly gave way to a more determined expression. No, I'm tired of hiding. She took a deep breath. If we're going to do this, I want to do it right. Tell my story too. The real story. Michael looked at her with a mix of surprise and admiration. Are you sure? It's time to stop running. Emily gave a nervous smile. I just hope Olivia won't mind having the Langston name linked to a reformed fraudster. Speaking of my cousin, Michael's tone shifted slightly. She's been acting strange lately. She canceled 2 board meetings and has been avoiding any talk about the company's finances. That's not like her. Not at all. Olivia lives for spreadsheets and financial reports. Michael frowned. I'll check on it later. For now, should we finish the tour? The industrial kitchen is almost done. The next morning, Emily was woken by her doorbell ringing non-stop. Still groggy, she opened the door to find Michael standing there, his face tense, holding the morning newspaper. What's going on, Olivia? He said, as he stepped inside and handed her the paper. She's in trouble. The headline was unmistakable. Langston Innovations Executive, under investigation for financial misconduct. The article detailed how Olivia Langston was being investigated for allegedly diverting company funds to personal offshore accounts and manipulating financial reports to inflate the company's stock value. Oh my God. Emily sat down, stunned. Did you know about this? I had no idea until last night. The police contacted me. Michael looked exhausted. Apparently the investigation has been going on for months after a company accountant raised some red flags. Do you think she's guilty? Michael ran a hand over his face. Honestly, I don't know. Olivia has always been tough in business, but dishonest. That's not the cousin I know. He hesitated. Or maybe I've been naive, just like she always says I am. What happens now? The police are going through all the company's financial records. Stocks have already dropped 20% since the news broke. Michael looked genuinely worried. Hundreds of jobs are at risk, including Laura's. Emily's phone rang. It was Laura, her voice tight and rushed. Emily, did you see the paper? They're saying Miss Langston embezzled millions. Everyone here is panicking, thinking they're going to lose their jobs. Calm down, Laura. I'm with Michael right now. We'll figure this out. There's more, Laura continued, lowering her voice. I overheard some executives talking. They're suggesting you might be involved because of your past in Chicago. What Emily felt a chill. How is that even possible? I never had access to the company's finances. They're hinting the Horizon Center could be a front for laundering money, that you and Olivia might be working together. Michael, who was listening in on the other line, jumped in. That's absurd. Olivia was against the project from day one. I'm just telling you what I heard, Mr. Langston. And one more thing, the interview with the local television station has been canceled. They want to wait until the Langston situation is cleared up. After hanging up, Emily and Michael exchanged worried glances. This is a nightmare, she whispered. I'm being tied to yet another financial scandal. I won't let that happen, Michael said firmly. I need to talk to Olivia, hear her side of the story. Will she even see you, if she's guilty? Olivia might be a lot of things, but she'd never run from a confrontation. That afternoon, while Michael tried to reach his cousin, Emily went to the Horizon Center to reassure the staff. The mood was tense. Many of them had experienced financial instability before, and the thought of losing their new jobs was frightening. Nothing is going to happen to the center, Emily said during an impromptu meeting. The project's funds are separate from Langston Innovations, held in an independent foundation. But wasn't Miss Langston also overseeing those funds? One of the instructors asked. Emily hesitated. It was true that Olivia, as part of her recent cooperation with the project, had taken on oversight of the foundation's finances, mostly to reassure investors rather than out of necessity. We'll go over every account, but the funding for this year is already secured, she replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. When Emily returned to her office, she found a surprise. Olivia Langston was sitting in her chair, elegant as always despite the dark circles under her eyes. Olivia, what are you doing here? Hiding from the press, she said with a humorless smile. Ironic, isn't it? Seeking refuge in the one place I tried to shut down. Emily carefully closed the door. Michael is looking for you. So is the police. I know. I'll speak to them soon. Olivia glanced around the modest office. You've done a good job here, Emily. Better than I expected. Olivia, what's going on? Are the accusations true? The executive let out a deep sigh. Not the way they're being reported. Yes, I moved some funds. Yes, I altered a few reports, but not for personal gain. Then what for? To save the company? Olivia stood up and walked over to the window, looking out over the courtyard, where children played under supervision. 2 years ago, Langston Innovations was on the brink of collapse. Michael was deep in depression after his divorce, barely paying attention to the business. New competitors were popping up faster, more innovative, and you stepped in. Someone had to. I made hard decisions, some right at the edge of legality, but all to protect our family's legacy. She turned to face Emily. The problem is, once you start bending the rules, it gets harder and harder to stop. Just then, the door swung open, and Michael walked in, his face a mix of relief and anger when he saw his cousin. Olivia, the whole city's looking for you. Michael, she remained surprisingly calm. I was just explaining to Emily how we ended up here. Then explain it to me too, he demanded, shutting the door. The chief accountant is cooperating, with the authorities showing transactions I never approved. Millions of dollars, Olivia. To save your company, she replied coldly. While you were mourning your failed marriage, I kept everything running. When we were desperate for capital, I came up with solutions. Illegal solutions. Necessary solutions. Olivia raised her voice for the first time. You think that Silicon Valley investment appeared out of nowhere, or that the government contracts came just because we smiled nicely? She shook her head. Someone had to get their hands dirty. Emily watched the exchange, a troubling feeling growing inside her. The justifications, the financial manipulation for a supposed greater good, it reminded her too much of what Thomas had done. Except Olivia genuinely seemed to believe she was protecting the company, not herself. Olivia, Emily said gently, the worse it gets, the harder it is to stop. Believe me, I've seen it happen. Olivia looked at her for a long moment. The difference, Emily, is that I always knew exactly what I was doing. And I'll face the consequences. What consequences? Michael asked, now calmer. The company might go under. Hundreds of people could lose their jobs. The Langston name will be dragged through the mud. Olivia gave a sad smile. Unless there's a convenient scapegoat, someone with a complicated financial past. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Are you suggesting I'm not suggesting anything? I'm informing you that several executives have already started spreading the rumor that you, Emily, with your questionable background, were the one who manipulated me. That the Horizon Center was an elaborate distraction while we funneled funds together. That's ridiculous. Michael exploded. No one would believe that. People believe what they want to believe, cousin. Especially when the alternative is admitting they were fooled by someone they trusted. Olivia turned to Emily. I didn't start the rumor, to be clear, but I didn't deny it either when it surfaced this morning. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Emily felt sick. Once again, she might be blamed for something she didn't do. Are you going to turn yourself in? Michael asked at last. Yes, this afternoon. Olivia adjusted her perfectly tailored blazer. But before that, I wanted to see the famous center for myself, to understand what was so important that you'd risk our company's reputation for it. She gave Emily a half smile. I have to admit, what you two built here is impressive. What happens now? Emily asked, her mind racing. I'll probably be arrested, Olivia answered, disturbingly calm. The company will face intense scrutiny. The board will likely ask for your resignation, Michael. And the center, that depends on how well you two can distance this project from Langston Innovations' troubles. Michael stepped forward, determination on his face. We'll clear your name, Olivia. Don't be foolish, cousin. She shook her head. I'm guilty of what they're accusing me of. Maybe not for the reasons they think, but still guilty. Olivia grabbed her expensive purse, getting ready to leave. What you need to do now is protect what really matters, the people who depend on you. This center, Emily. As Olivia reached the door, Emily felt she had to say something. Olivia, what you did doesn't define who you are. Believe me, I know that better than anyone. The executive paused, turning back with a thoughtful look. Maybe you're not the worst thing that ever happened to my cousin after all. With a final nod, she walked out. Michael and Emily stood in silence, trying to process what had just happened. She's going to sacrifice herself, Michael finally said quietly, and let the rumors about you keep spreading. Emily took a deep breath, forcing herself to think clearly. We need to act fast. The interview with the local television station they canceled. Remember then, let's find another station. We have to tell our story before the rumors become the truth. A spark of determination lit up in Michael's eyes. I've got a better idea. Let's hold a press conference today. Today, there's no time to lose. Olivia's turning herself in this afternoon, and the rumors about you are already out there. Michael grabbed his phone. I'll call the press, the investors, everyone involved. It's time the full truth came out. As he started making calls, Emily tried to calm the panic rising inside her. Years ago in Chicago, she had stayed out of the spotlight, while Thomas faced the accusations alone. It had ended badly. The public had judged her just as guilty as him. Would it be different this time, Michael? She said, cutting in while he was still on the phone. What exactly are you planning? He covered the receiver with his hand. Press conference at 4 at Langston Innovations headquarters. I'll lay it all out, how the project started with a lie about the tumor. Olivia's financial moves, her motives, everything. And what about me, my past, especially about you? It's time the world meets the real Emily Sullivan, the woman who had the courage to report her own husband, rebuild her life from scratch, and help others do the same. Emily's fear slowly gave way to growing resolve. Yes, it was time to stop running. Time to stop letting others tell her story. By 3, as they were preparing for the press conference, Michael got a call that changed everything. Olivia had turned herself in just as she promised. But before that, she had submitted documents detailing all of her actions, and to everyone's surprise, documents that completely cleared Emily of any involvement. Even more surprising, Olivia admitted that she had originally planned to use the Horizon Center as a cover for embezzling funds, but changed her mind after seeing the real work being done there. Instead, she quietly transferred $5 million from her own fortune to the center's foundation, securing its operations for at least 2 more years, no matter what happened to Langston Innovations. "I don't understand," Emily said, confused. "Why would she do that?" Michael looked just as surprised. "Maybe Olivia has more layers than we thought." The press conference was a storm of camera flashes and questions. Michael took the lead as CEO of Langston Innovations, first confirming the accusations against Olivia, but also explaining that her actions were desperate attempts to save the company during a crisis. "Olivia Langston made serious mistakes, and she'll be held accountable," he said. "But it's important to understand that her actions, while wrong, weren't driven by personal greed. They were a twisted effort to protect her family's legacy and the jobs of hundreds of people." Then, to everyone's surprise, Michael called Emily up to the podium. With her heart pounding but her voice steady, she faced the crowd of reporters and cameras. "My name is Emily Sullivan. 6 years ago in Chicago, I was the wife of Thomas Sullivan, a financial consultant who committed a massive fraud. When I discovered what he'd done, I tried to report him, but no one listened. After the scandal broke and my husband took his own life, I lost everything. Not just material things, but my identity, my credibility, my voice." The cameras kept flashing as she went on. "I moved to Boston, changed my name, and started over as a janitor. That's when I met people like Laura and her children, people who were also victims of things beyond their control. The Horizon Community Center was born out of the belief that everyone deserves a second chance." Then Emily looked straight into the cameras, determined to take control of her story for the first time. "There are rumors linking me to the financial troubles at Langston Innovations. Let me be clear. I had absolutely no involvement in Olivia Langston's actions. I'm no longer a silent victim, and I won't allow my story to be twisted again." The press conference went on for nearly 2 hours, with Michael outlining the company's restructuring plans and Emily explaining the work being done at the Horizon Community Center. For many journalists, the real story, the former socialite turned janitor who was helping the homeless, was even more compelling than the fraud allegations. When it was finally over, Michael and Emily found themselves alone in the now empty conference room, exhausted but relieved. "You were amazing," he said, taking her hands in his. "I'm shaking," Emily admitted. "But for the first time in years, I feel like I've gotten my voice back." "What Olivia did that secret donation? She gave us a chance to survive the storm," Emily finished. "Now it's up to us." Michael nodded, pulling her into a hug. "Do you think we can do it? Save the center, even with all this bad publicity?" Emily rested her head on his shoulder. "We can, because now we're not building on lies. We're building on the truth, imperfect as it may be." That night, as they headed home, they both knew tough days lay ahead. The company was in crisis, the center under scrutiny, and Olivia was facing serious legal consequences. But for the first time, Emily didn't feel the urge to run, to hide, or to reinvent herself in another city, under another name. She was finally ready to face the world as she truly was, Emily Sullivan, a woman with a complicated past and a future full of possibility. 6 months had passed since the media storm around Langston Innovations and the Horizon Community Center. Fall had given way to winter, and now winter was slowly stepping aside for the first signs of spring in Boston. Emily stood by the window of her new office at the center, watching children play in the freshly renovated courtyard. Among them, Liam ran with joy, now hardly recognizable from the shy, undernourished boy she had first met on the street over a year ago. Sophie, nearly 3, proudly showed off her colorful rain boots to the other kids. Thinking about how much has changed, Laura's voice broke into her thoughts. Emily smiled at her friend, who now led the center's legal department, offering free assistance to families in need. "It's surreal, isn't it? Sometimes I wake up thinking I'm still in that tiny apartment worried about late rent." Laura nodded, fully understanding. "And sometimes I still jump at noises outside, afraid someone's going to steal what little we have." She looked out at her kids playing freely. "I'll never be able to thank you enough for everything you've done." The fallout from the financial scandal had been intense, but surprisingly different from what they had feared. After the press conference, Emily's story, her fall from grace in Chicago, her life as a janitor, and her devotion to helping others, captured the public's imagination. What could have been another devastating scandal turned into a story of redemption and second chances. Olivia had pleaded guilty to multiple charges and received a 5-year sentence reduced to 3 for cooperating with authorities. She was now serving her time in a minimum security federal prison where, ironically, she had started a program teaching financial and business skills to fellow inmates. Langston Innovations survived, though it was smaller and restructured. Michael had surprised the board by announcing he would split his time between the company and the Horizon Center, something unthinkable for the once single-minded executive. "The new group of families arrives tomorrow," Laura said, checking her calendar. 5 families, 12 kids in total. "Are we ready? Are the apartments furnished?" "All set, thanks to the weekend volunteers." Laura paused briefly. "Emily, did you see today's paper? I haven't had the chance yet." Why? Laura pulled a copy from her bag. Olivia gave an interview from prison. Emily took the paper and quickly found the article. To her surprise, Olivia had spoken at length about the Horizon Community Center, calling it the most meaningful legacy of the Langston family, and encouraging other companies to invest in similar initiatives. "She really has changed," Emily murmured, moved. "People can surprise you," Laura said with a smile, "like a certain cleaning lady who changed so many lives." After Laura left, Emily returned to the window thinking about the incredible journey of the past few months. The Horizon Community Center hadn't just survived the scandal, it had thrived. The unexpected publicity brought in new donors, volunteers, and even opportunities to replicate the model in other cities. Her phone rang. It was Michael. "Emily, can you come to the estate tonight? I have something important to discuss." The seriousness in his voice worried her. "Is everything okay, Michael?" "Everything's perfectly fine," he assured her. I need you here at 7. Of course I'll be there." The rest of the day, Emily tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting back to Michael's mysterious tone. In recent weeks, their relationship had reached a new level of closeness and understanding. From reluctant co-workers to project partners, from friends to something deeper, the progression had been natural and easy, built on mutual respect and growing admiration. At exactly 7, the taxi dropped her off in front of the Langston estate, but this time felt different from every other time she'd been there, first as an anonymous cleaner, then as an employee, later as a project partner. Tonight the house was lit differently, with soft lights outlining a path through the garden. Clara, the housekeeper, opened the door with a knowing smile. "Good evening, Emily. He's waiting for you in the back garden." "In the garden in this cold?" Emily asked, confused. Clara just smiled wider. "Follow the lights." Curious, Emily walked through the house she once used to clean, following the trail of small lanterns that led into the garden. When she opened the back door, she caught her breath. The garden, usually formal and a bit stiff, had been transformed. Hundreds of tiny lights hung from the trees, creating a magical starlit effect. A path of white rose petals led to the central gazebo, now wrapped in flowers and more lights. And in the center of the gazebo stood Michael, dressed more sharply than ever in a dark suit, but with an expression she'd never seen before, a nearly visible vulnerability, a very human nervousness that made her heart race. "Michael," she murmured, walking slowly toward him. "What is all this?" He reached out his hand, inviting her into the gazebo. "Do you remember the first real conversation we had right here in this garden, when you thought I was about to fire you for bringing food to Laura?" Emily smiled at the memory. "How could I forget? I thought my life was over again, and I thought mine was finally beginning." Michael looked at her, his gaze deep and steady. "Emily, that day I lied about being terminally ill because I didn't know how else to explain, not even to myself, why I cared so much about what you were doing. Why that simple act of kindness touched me so deeply." He took her hands, his touch gentle but steady. "Now I understand. You showed me a world beyond my own, a world where people truly care about one another, where second chances are real, where value isn't in what we own but in what we give." Emily's eyes began to sting with unshed tears as Michael went on. "These past few months have been the hardest and somehow the most meaningful of my life. Olivia in prison, the company in crisis, the center under pressure, and still all I can think about is how grateful I am for that moment. A year ago, when I decided to follow my cleaning lady to see what she was hiding." Then, to Emily's complete surprise, Michael knelt down in front of her, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Emily Sullivan, you taught me the meaning of courage. The courage to start over, to help others, even when you were barely holding on yourself, to face your past instead of running from it. You showed me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in lives changed." He opened the box, revealing a delicate ring, not flashy or extravagant, but elegant in its simplicity, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. "The blue reminds me of your eyes that first day when you stood up to me after I found out about the food," he said with an emotional smile. "Emily Sullivan, would you give me the honor of sharing not just a social project but a whole life? Will you marry me?" Tears finally spilled down Emily's cheeks. The journey that had brought her to this moment flashed through her mind: the fall in Chicago, the anonymous years of struggle, the constant fear of being exposed, and then somehow finding understanding, acceptance, and love in the most unexpected place. "Yes," she answered, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, Michael Langston, I will marry you." When he slid the ring onto her finger and stood to embrace her, Emily felt like the circle had finally come full. The cleaning lady and the millionaire both changed by a chance encounter and the courage to see beyond appearances. The kiss they shared under the sparkling gazebo lights sealed a promise that went far beyond words, a promise of a life built not on convenient lies or carefully maintained appearances, but on truth, compassion, and a shared purpose. The Horizon Community Center had never looked so full of life as it did that spring afternoon. The freshly painted walls were decorated with simple flowers and soft lights. The large hall usually used for classes and training had been transformed into a warm, intimate wedding space. Nervous Laura asked, adjusting the simple yet elegant white dress Emily had chosen for the big day. "Strangely no," Emily replied with a calm smile. "It feels right." Choosing to hold the wedding at the center had been an easy and unanimous decision. That space represented everything they valued and the journey they had taken together. The guests weren't Boston's social elite, but an unexpected and meaningful mix, families helped by the center staff members, a few Langston Innovations executives, Clara the housekeeper, and even surprisingly, Olivia Langston, who had received special permission to attend. Escorted by discreet guards, Liam, now 6 years old and dressed in a tiny suit that made him adorably uncomfortable, came into the makeshift bridal room. "Aunt Emily," he called out with serious urgency, "it's time. Uncle Michael looks like he's going to faint from nerves." Emily laughed, adjusting her simple veil one last time. Laura hugged her tightly before leaving to take her place as maid of honor. "Thank you for everything," Emily whispered. "No thank you," Laura replied with emotion, "for giving us a real life." The small hall grew quiet as the doors opened. There would be no dramatic entrance or elaborate wedding march, just Emily walking in alone, representing her independent journey to the man waiting for her at the simple altar. Michael stood there, more handsome than ever in his tuxedo. But what truly caught Emily's attention was his expression, a mix of awe, love, and deep gratitude that made her heart swell. The ceremony was simple and deeply personal. They had written their own vows, reflecting the extraordinary path that had brought them there. Michael began, his voice steady, despite the emotion in his eyes. "When you came into my life, I was an incomplete man, rich in possessions but poor in real connections. You showed me that true wealth is in the bonds we build and the lives we touch." He held her hands tightly as if to give more weight to every word. "I promise never to forget the most important lesson you taught me, that small acts of kindness can spark great change. I promise to be your partner in every way, not just on the easy days but especially on the hard ones. I promise to build with you, not just a house but a home where love, compassion, and honesty are our foundation." When it was her turn, Emily took a deep breath, looking at the man in front of her, not a distant millionaire anymore, but the complex, wonderful person she had grown to love. "Michael, our story began in an unexpected way. A quick gesture, a sudden curiosity, a meeting that would change our lives forever. Of all the mansions in Boston, I walked into yours. Of all the people who could have seen me feeding Laura and the kids, it was you." Her voice trembled slightly, holding back emotion. "I promise to always stand by your side, just like I have through the hardest times this past year. I promise to remind us when days get hard of the cleaner and the boss who found something precious where no one expected it. I promise never to run again, not from challenges, not from truth, and not from the love we've built together." As they exchanged rings, simple gold bands without any show, Emily looked out at the faces in the small crowd, Laura, tears in her eyes. Liam and Sophie trying to stay still. Olivia wearing a surprisingly gentle expression, and dozens of others whose lives had been woven together with theirs through the Horizon Center. When the officiant finally pronounced them husband and wife, the kiss they shared was followed by clapping and a few emotional tears from the guests. It wasn't just the union of two people, it was the celebration of a journey of transformation that had touched countless lives. The reception that followed had none of the flashy luxury one might expect from a man in Michael's position. Instead, it was a warm and genuine celebration, with homemade food prepared by the center's own beneficiaries, cheerful music, and heartfelt conversations. At one point, Emily found herself momentarily alone with Olivia, who had managed to step away from the guards for a private word. "I have to admit," Olivia said in her usual direct tone, "though softer than usual, you surprised me, Emily Sullivan, or should I say Emily Langston now." "What do you mean? I thought you were just another gold digger, or worse, someone using a sad story to manipulate my cousin." Olivia shrugged. "I was completely wrong." Emily smiled, understanding this was probably as close to an apology as she would ever get from Olivia. "We were both protecting what we loved, just in different ways. The difference is, your way worked better." Olivia noted a slight smile, softening her normally stern face. "Look at all this." She gestured toward the center at the people celebrating. "You built something real. Something that's going to last. We built it, Emily corrected. All of us, including you. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Me, I tried to sabotage this place from the start. And then you saved it with that secret donation. Not to mention your legal situation forced us all to face truths we'd been avoiding. A genuine smile, maybe the first Emily had ever seen, appeared on Olivia's face. Always finding the silver lining, aren't you? Now I understand why my cousin needs you so much. Before they could say more, the guards approached discreetly, signaling that Olivia's time was up. The former executive straightened her posture. Well, Mrs. Langston, enjoy your evening, she offered her hand formally, and take good care of him. Michael has always been better than the rest of us. He just needed someone to remind him. The night carried on with more dancing, laughter, and meaningful conversations. At one point, Michael pulled Emily onto the center of the makeshift dance floor, holding her close as they swayed to a soft melody. Happy Mrs. Langston, he murmured against her hair. More than I ever thought possible, she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. Looking around, Emily saw Laura dancing with Liam on her feet, saw Sophie fast asleep in the arms of one of the daycare staff, saw former homeless residents chatting happily with Langston Innovations, executives, worlds colliding and blending in ways that once seemed impossible. You know what I think about sometimes? Michael asked gently. What? That in some parallel universe I never noticed you sneaking out with that lunchbox. I never followed you to Laura. I stayed the same lonely, work-obsessed man, and you stayed just the invisible janitor. Emily shivered slightly at the thought. What a sad universe that would be. That's why I'm grateful every day that I paid attention just once in my life to what really mattered. When the music ended, they held each other a moment longer, soaking in the fullness of it all. For Emily, who had once lost everything and rebuilt her life from the ashes, this wasn't just a new chapter. It was a reminder that sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised in the most unlikely situations. For Michael, who once had everything money could buy but never found true connection, it was the culmination of a journey that began with a simple moment of curiosity, following his janitor to see what she was hiding in her bag. I think it's time for our announcement, Michael finally said, taking her hand. Emily nodded, walking with him to the small stage. Michael asked for everyone's attention, and the room gradually quieted. First, we want to thank every one of you for being here. Today is meaningful, not just because of our wedding, but because it represents the coming together of two worlds that in the past rarely met in any real way. Emily looked at her new husband's face, open, sincere, so different from the distant and guarded CEO she had first met. Emily and I have a special announcement, he continued. Starting today, along with the services we already offer, the Horizon Community Center will be expanding. We're launching the New Beginnings program, which will provide full scholarships to children and young people in vulnerable situations and offer job training and employment opportunities for adults. A wave of excitement spread through the room as Michael went on. We believe everyone deserves a second chance, something we've both learned from personal experience. This center began with a simple but powerful act of kindness when Emily risked her job to feed a family in need. Now we want to multiply that act 1,000 times. Emily stepped forward, joining Michael in the announcement. What we've learned on our journey is that the most meaningful changes often start with small acts of courage and compassion. Every person in this room has the power to make a difference in someone's life. This center isn't just a building or a program. It's a testament to what happens when we choose to look beyond appearances and give people a real chance to start over. As the guests applauded, Michael pulled Emily in for a spontaneous kiss, not the formal kind shared during the ceremony, but a heartfelt gesture of passion and gratitude that made the room erupt in even louder applause and cheers. Later, as the celebration finally began to wind down, Michael and Emily stepped out onto the center's patio, looking up at the stars over Boston. He wrapped his arms around her, shielding her from the cool spring night air. So where do we go from here, Mrs. Langston, he asked. Emily smiled, turning in his arms to face the man who had changed her life just as much as she had changed his. Forward, she said simply, and as they got into the car that would take them back to the mansion, no longer a symbol of lonely wealth, but a true home they had both learned to build. Emily reflected that sometimes the happiest endings aren't the ones from fairy tales, but the ones we patiently create, brick by brick, truth by truth, and one fresh start at a time.